right, so this is Rebecca, and I'm here with another Readathon, Karen Read update, and I have a very special, surprising guest here with me because Kevin is umpiring baseball, and he's not going to be home early enough for me to do what I usually do, which is tell him what happened, and he goes, really? What? Who's that? What? Wait, what? I'm here with someone who actually knows about this case, I think, right?
I've been pulled into it. I can't get enough of it.
Well, I need to hear about this. I am here with none other than James Renner. Hello, James. Thank you for coming on with me to do this.
Thanks for having me on the show. I think maybe the last time I was in a room with you, I probably was wearing a fedora at some convention years
arguing.
ago.
Right? We were like arguing about the Maura Murray case, I think, right?
Probably. I have to go to my chart to see how long we've been on before we had to mention the Maura Murray case. I guess that's
Well, I think some folks might be surprised to learn that we've developed like a friendly relationship behind the scenes, because I think, it's possible to have daylight between two people in terms of what they think, how they might approach things or whatever, but also come together on things and agree that like you could be decent people and like we can like each other and get along, right?
Thank you. I appreciate that, and I wish more people were like that. Actually, no, I have a lot of respect for what you and Kevin do, and anybody that puts out content as consistently and well. And I think there's a need and a severe lack of journalism in true crime podcasting these days. So it's always refreshing to see that.
Yeah, and one thing I've learned about you, Renner, is that like you get a lot right.
Thank you.
And you also, I actually obviously talked to you about another story that you did a few months ago, and on Background. I'll just have to come out and say it. I talked to you on Background for another story that you did, and I was really very impressed with your reporting style, with your discretion, with your protection of your sources, with your just sort of handling of things. And I just say like, I really respected the way you handled that and other things that you've done. And I just, I'm really, really glad that we've developed this relationship and can talk about things so openly, even if we disagree on one case.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Honestly, you kind of hit on part of it. Some of the issues that I've had over the years directly come from protecting sources. People will say, "Oh, I can't believe you're saying this. Where's your if there's a source here," and they have to come forward and say these things. Yeah, I'm very protective because I know what'll happen if their name gets out there and picked apart. So thank you for that.
All right, so let's put all of that aside and talk about why we're here. So what brought you to start following this case? Because what brought me to it was the Boston Globe asked me a few weeks ago to come on their podcast to talk about it. They actually wanted somebody who talks about true crime media who also knows about the case, and they couldn't find somebody. So they were like, will you just learn about the case? And I was like, sure, whatever, I'll read up. And then I was like, holy shit.
Yeah.
And now this has become my whole personality. So like, what brought you into following this story?
I mean, very, very similar. I do a weekly show called True Crime This Week that wraps up the news stories in true crime that you might have missed. It comes out every Friday morning. And so I'm always kind of trying to keep up to date. And I started hearing about this Karen Read case, and I kept pushing it aside because I think partly because of that whole Turtle Boy aspect of it, this blogger that was just crazy and out of control. It just seemed to me like one of those cases, kind of like Delphi, where it just got consumed by conspiracy theorists. And as soon as I start hearing or sensing that word conspiracy, I kind of check out. But this might be one of, that 1 in a million case where the conspiracy is actually the truth.
Or truth adjacent, for sure.
Right.
Yeah.
And everything that I was seeing from the courtroom just gave me more and more questions. And certainly, as we texted back and forth today, this is I think this is a case that should be studied in schools on reasonable doubt.
Yeah.
And because at this point, I don't see how you could possibly convict her based on just simply the actions and behavior of the police involved in the investigation.
It doesn't even matter. Like, it doesn't even matter what she did. It really doesn't. I mean, I have been gobsmacked by what's come out in court, what's come out of these cops' mouths, and what's come out of witnesses' mouths. But I can we just pause on the Turtle Boy thing? Let me just tell you a quick story about that, because I've really come to think about him very differently in the last few weeks.
Okay.
I know that his in-person behavior has been not good. I know that. And I know that he has said things online that have caused real life people to do things, and that is bad. I know that's all bad.
Yeah.
That being said, I was at a wedding this weekend with some people from Massachusetts, from that part of Massachusetts, and some really conservative people who would typically be like pro-cop people, who would typically be like anti-conspiracy theory people, but just like the people in Canton, 100% are in the camp of there's something stinky here.
Yeah.
And I was talking to them about the fact that this is the reason why I think this case is important, because there are a lot of people who, despite what's reported about wrongful convictions and what's reported about police corruption and what's reported about all these things, don't see a system that needs any help.
Right.
They just know their cop friends, and they just know their cop uncle, and they're just like, these cops are under attack and whatever. And I'm like, I'm not anti-cop. I'm anti the system the system doesn't work, and it's not working, and people are being screwed. And it's like, this case is showing that to people who I don't think necessarily believed it before this case. And I think it's important for that reason.
Good point.
And and this woman said to me, she lives near or in Canton, or her sister does or something, and she's very familiar with Turtle Boy before.
Okay.
The Turtle Boy sports blog. And she's like, he's fucking crazy, but he saved her life. And she was telling me that he was the one locally that, everyone started reading his blog locally.
Yeah.
And that the local movement is what caught the press's attention initially.
I can see that, yeah.
And the press attention is what made, everything sort of start rumbling, people showing up at the courthouse. It's what Alan Jackson was like really intrigued joining the team, because there's been all of this momentum. And, and Turtle Boy, I've been reading his blogs, and he finds these interesting connections, like the fact that Higgins' best friend, the cell phone guy, testified in the Aaron Hernandez trial about the fact that when you destroy a SIM card, you can't read historic text messages. So this is information that Higgins' best friend has from the FBI. It's like, sure. Turtle Boy writes a shit that poorly written but interesting shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and you need somebody like him to make sense of all the connections in this case, because I've never seen a case like this where you have to know whose sister-in-law is related by marriage to this other person in order to see the direct connection that most of us wouldn't make.
Yeah.
They were all connected. They're all connected.
He's almost like the 1940s gossip rag of the case.
Yeah.
And he is, by the way, I don't condone any of his stuff that he's done that's put people in harm's way and all that stuff. But I do think it's super weird and not great that the state intercepted communications between him and his lawyer. That is fucked up.
Yeah.
In my opinion. So what do you think so far? One thing that's been frustrating for me is that I'm just telling Kevin this stuff, and he's just like, really, really? I just want to talk briefly about yesterday with you.
Okay.
Michael Proctor on the stand. What are your general thoughts?
Oh my God, was that just yesterday? That so much has come out that it feels like a week ago. He has Proctor has no business being a cop ever again. That's the one thing I can take away from that. And I do agree with you. He does kind of look like a thumb.
I don't comment on people's looks, but he likes commenting on people's looks.
He very much likes commenting on people's looks. And, he went through that phone looking for nudes. Part of what's in play here too is interesting to me is the mindset of somebody that's born and raised in Massachusetts, maybe greater New England as, generalizing, but, there's all cops walk that thin blue line and then they protect their own. But Boston police are at a whole other level in the way they're organized and the way that they know how to protect each other. And that's all I could think of when I was listening to Proctor, is he had practiced these responses. These people are very, very good at taking the questions from the defense attorney and figuring out how to answer them without answering them, picking apart the semantics of the question and not the intent of the question.
Right.
And it just boggles my mind that, we know there's an internal investigation with Proctor. We don't know the details of that. Obviously had something to do with this. I mean, what he did with her cell phone alone, but
hopefully there's a new one with the getting drunk in the cop car with Kevin Albert situation.
Yeah.
I'd be fired for that. If I were out in the NHPR Subaru at like an event and got drunk on the way home and someone left maybe their badge and gun in my car, like, I may either be fired or suspended or something.
Yeah. It just strikes me that they've put so much energy on not being helpful that if they had put like a quarter of that amount into, legitimately investigating the case early on, we might have had a different outcome.
Right.
And clearly none of these people that are taking the stand, the Alberts and Proctor and, everybody that's related to them, never expected that, that they would have to give these answers in open court. I'm sure they were either, just like Proctor said, they were assuming she'd either kill herself or that this would, like
never be public.
99% of other cases would be pleaded down. And she just accepted because the evidence they built around her was so overwhelming. Yeah. What did you think of Proctor, other than the thumb thing?
Well, I thought we watched him perjure himself in real time, and I thought that Jackson showed a tremendous amount of restraint by not saying it in real time, because it just would have been an objection. But he said these are the family members I know, and then he also knows Kevin.
Yeah.
And he's like, I don't consider that fucking bullshit. That's perjury. It is. He also, his lack of recall of things that are integral to the case when he's the lead investigator is bananas. His quote, lack of recall.
Yeah.
And I am completely fascinated. The only thing I've been watching for this entire time is, that, Jackson and Yannetti have the transcripts of the federal grand jury testimony. Yeah. They know everything that these people testified to in front of the federal grand jury. And they're just basically, and they're not allowed to tell the jury what's in it, but they are allowed to ask questions about it. So they call it, quote, the earlier proceeding. And so when they say, did you say in an earlier proceeding X, the person says, I don't recall, they're catching them in a lie.
That's generally how you avoid perjury is the old, I do not recall.
Yeah. And his number of things he doesn't, but he also didn't recall things like when he interviewed somebody, why he interviewed somebody. The other thing that's been really astonishing to me is the timelines of logging of evidence, timelines of making notes of just basic police work. I mean, I hate the expression devil's advocate, because who the fuck would advocate for the devil? But as an atheist, it's easy for me to say that. But, let's just play that role for a second. Let's say, hypothetically, Karen Read drunkenly drove, accidentally hit her boyfriend. They were angry with each other. She drove off in a huff, accidentally hit him. It's plausible that could have happened. I'm just going to say it. I don't think his injuries match that, but we've got to hear from the experts on that. But it's plausible that could have happened to the police. I could imagine the police thinking it's very plausible this could have happened. They still didn't do any of the stuff that someone would do, even if that were the case.
Yeah.
It's a cop.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They never interviewed they didn't look in the homeowner's house. They never, Brian Albert never even came outside when they were outside in his lawn. Like, it's wild.
Yeah. Yeah. For me, what I keep going back to is statistical probability. And I think about this a lot in my real life too, because it helps with anxiety. Sometimes I'll get worried about the stupidest thing, and I'll have to tell myself, in the history of history, has this ever happened to somebody? It's probably not going to happen to you.
Yeah.
But with the Karen Read trial, you look at the statistics there. Have you ever heard of a woman dropping off her spouse in front of a house full of cops backing into, let's say she backed into him. Somehow that low speed impact caused him to, lose consciousness, fall into the ground and die. I mean, have you ever heard of that happening?
With no injuries below the neck? No.
Right.
I mean, the no injuries below the neck thing, that's an astonishing fact. And some things came out today, too, that I think are interesting and are going to come up later. So do you want to talk about today?
Yeah,
a little bit?
The DNA stuff.
DNA stuff and some other stuff. So let's just start with today. So today we had Proctor's boss on the stand, State Police Detective Lieutenant Brian Tully. It's weird for me to say that because Brian Tully is also my brother-in-law's name, weirdly. Anyway, that's Proctor's boss, and a few highlights from his testimony that I love your reaction to. Initially, he gets up there, and this is like, the prosecution does this thing that they always do where they try to get out the worst facts, that they know that the defense is going to ask. But they also always get out facts that I always like, oh, that looks bad for Karen. And then Jackson or Unetti gets up and just destroys them. But anyway, so that they try to get ahead of it. And, he said he admits that they never conducted a search of the Fairview Road home where John O'Keefe's body was found because they had no reason to believe evidence would be covered inside. Can you imagine a scenario in which there's a home outside of which a fatally injured cop was found, and they never went inside to look around in the house? What are your thoughts there?
The only time that would happen is if the home's owned by a higher ranking cop, I think there's no other reason to justify that. And I could see it simply as, even if it was somebody other than Proctor that wasn't directly connected to the Alberts, any other police officer in that situation might defer to Albert if he were to say nothing happened in here. Okay, move on. So I think the same thing could have happened, but the fact that it's Proctor on top of it makes it look even more suspicious. There's no reason. I mean, it would take them 10 minutes to just check that off the list. The whole thing with his son too is, with the abrasions on his knuckles and, I did that.
You mean his nephew, Colin?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. Colin having those abrasions on his knuckles, and then on the stand, I thought it was very telling. Again, I'm looking at this as a storyteller and how stories develop in your mind. And he was asked, I had something in my left hand and I fell and I braced it with my right fist, which already doesn't quite make sense. But the defense attorney was very...
Okay, where do you live? You live in New England, right?
I live in Ohio. We have winters out here, though.
You have snow, but you've fallen on ice. How do you position your hand when you fall on ice or anything?
Flat surface.
You don't land like Thanos or one of the Avengers on the ground with your fist down on the ground and cut it to shreds. It's usually freaking ridiculous.
Right. But the defense attorney, I thought, was very smart in that situation and asked him, what were you holding in your left hand? Which most people wouldn't think to ask. And he said, I was holding a phone or a drink. And that's a weird answer. Like, you've either remembered it and you know which one it was, or you don't remember it at all, and which I think is the issue because I don't believe his story at all. So he's like, what could I have in my left hand? Oh, a drink or a phone.
By the way, Turtle Boy, I hate referring to Turtle Boy's stupid blog, but Turtle Boy has uncovered some more video of Colin getting in, being fighting with people for videos.
That. Yeah.
And Colin is like, I've never fought with anybody, and I've never touched any. Fuck you, Colin. Anyway, lying. Yeah. Just say it's okay to say I'm a boxer. I fight with people. I do whatever, but I didn't do anything that night. Just say that.
Right.
Just say that, Colin. It's not that hard.
What hot-headed young man near Boston hasn't gotten into a few Donniebrooks?
Oh, come on. Let's not be stereotypical now. Although it is funny. Okay. So the next thing that Tully talks about is the video they pulled, video from the library, video from the synagogue. And this estate's kind of trying to place her. This is what they're trying to do. They're trying to place her. And it's such weak tea. But their theory is, and there's a lot of talking around it, but the whole point is they're trying to say that she drove by the Fairview house. So the morning she woke up at 4 a.m. or whatever, realized John wasn't there, got in her car, and maybe before she even placed these panicked phone calls to her friends, cruised by the Fairview house, saw that John's body was there, and then placed all these panicked phone calls, picked up her friends so that when they went back to the Fairview house, she knew where the body was because they saw it set in the stand. They didn't see it, but she did.
Yeah.
So they say that there's this video of an SUV that like is consistent with her Lexus, yada, yada, yada. But not like there's no plates, there's no whatever. This is all just like state theory stuff packed together.
Yeah.
And one of the things that Tully brings out as evidence to match this is a cell tower map with pings. But the thing is, he made the map.
Yeah.
This is not a map that was provided by Verizon. There's not a map that was provided by Cellbrite or some cell tower like, trigonometry.
Yeah.
He made this map.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts about that?
I think they're so used to what you get as a police officer, especially in that region where this is the way it is because I'm saying it and I'm the ultimate authority in this because I'm a cop. And I think that's just part of the mentality. And probably if you didn't go to an expert, it's because you know what the expert would say. It's not the story you want. Yeah. It wasn't there also video that would have shown her coming back home that night.
Yes.
That mysteriously disappeared.
Video that like people say would have shown her taillight being intact. But there is video of her driving from a different camera that shows her taillight with a small ding in it, not like the heavy damage that they say was caused by the accident. That all exists. I am just banking on that all coming up during when the defense presents their side.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of putting a pin in those kinds of things for now because mostly I've seen them like on Reddit and I've seen them. He by the way, her lawyers talked about all this stuff in the opening statement.
Right.
And so like, I'm like, they wouldn't have talked about it if they didn't have it because these lawyers are fucking good.
Oh yeah.
And so I'm like, I don't want to like assert it as fact until I see it. But
they're experts at getting the person on the stand to, they give them just enough rope to hang themselves.
Correct.
Over and over and over.
Yes. So then Jackson, the defense attorney, addressed this cell tower map to Tully on the stand and got him to admit that these cell towers, the device that could ping them could be from a 360-degree radius from around the cell tower. It's not like he can triangulate what direction it's coming from. So like the cell tower, there's like two towers. And it's like, it could be Fairview or it could be the McCabe residence where he also was Ben. And it's like bouncing back and forth between the two. But on Tully's map, it definitely shows her closer to the place he wants her to be.
Of course. I didn't see the map. I'll have to look at that. Does it look like one of those things from a Wes Anderson movie where there's like little stick figures and that's
Probably.
What I picture. That's what I want.
Probably. So Tully was also asked about, and by the defense, about a couple of things that then he didn't pursue, but they were brought up, which makes me wonder if they're going to come up. I feel like a lot of these things are setups for like later defense stuff,
course,
right?
Yeah.
And one of the things that came up that I thought was so interesting was that Jackson asked him about the fact that O'Keefe was found near the road without a coat on.
Yeah. Yeah. That's very telling.
And he said that, he had no winter gear on whatsoever. And Tully said, correct. And Jackson said, like, would you expect someone who entered a house to leave their winter gear on inside the house?
Right.
And Tully's like, no, that's not reasonable given the other information I have.
Yeah.
Like, so are they leading toward that, like, he was wearing a coat, but the coat wasn't in the car? Because that seems like kind of a big deal.
I don't know. Yeah, it's definitely setting something up. The fact that he wasn't found with a coat on, the easiest explanation is he took it off, and you'd take it off when you walked inside the house.
Yeah, who knows? But who knows? I mean, I don't know if that's where it's going, but it was certainly an interesting moment for me.
This reminds me, I also, what would have really helped here is if Albert's had security cameras. Or Ring cameras, or those Arlo cameras, and I guess they have to be the only residence of a police officer in the greater Boston area that doesn't have home security.
Yeah. Let me tell you something. He said on the stand that he had gotten them for Christmas, but hadn't installed them yet. Listen, I'm not the kind of person who says like, it's always the case that, and I don't want to be that person. I don't know. I know cops. I know people think that I don't know cops, but I know cops. They all fucking have Ring cameras.
Yes. Yeah. It's like a fetish for them. Like the more security cameras.
And it's like they had them before anyone else had them.
Yes.
Like they also have dash cams, and they also have, they don't all have dash cams, but certainly home security systems, gun safes.
Yes.
Like there's stuff you find in a cop's house. Oh, also cops park their cars. They back into their driveway.
Right.
They don't pull into their drive. Like there's just certain cop behaviors that come from the training. Some of them were in the military, but there's certain like police academy shit and like home cameras. By the way, the footage across the street from the police chief, like sub chief across the street, doesn't appear to be here anymore. But early reporting says there was Ring footage there. I don't know where that went.
Oh wow!
I don't know anything about that, but I'm going to look into it. So anyway, so that came up that we're talking about the coat thing. Then they talk about the Sally Port footage, which I love talking about. I
just like the word Sally Port.
Me too. Like why did you bring the car to the Canton police station? Like, because it was warm and big.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And parking in a spot where you bring and process prisoners.
One thing I'm curious to see if it comes out in the defense case, and this may be nothing, but it's just funny to me, is that, the video of them bringing the car into the Sally Port is missing. That's another piece of missing footage. They have all this video of the Sally Port. They say it's motion activated. However, the video is all cut up and weird, and like sometimes it cuts in and there's already two people in the frame. So the motion activated story does not fly with me.
No. And the video from inside the Sally Port is inverted, but then stamped correctly. So they have this video of the video that we do see of it being pulled into the Sally Port. There's already like a pattern of snow on the ground. Oh, yes.
That matches like her car. So it's like, it looks like maybe her car was already in there. Some of the snow fell off. They pulled it out. Because we know that like when you pull a car in and snow falls off of it, it melts.
Yeah.
Unless the car's in there for 2 minutes and you pull it out. Like, so what other car was in there for 2 minutes where all the snow fell off? They pulled it out and then they pulled her car back in. That's something I've been wondering about.
That's a good catch.
Yeah, I don't mean to be like Susan Simpson here, but it's a thing I've been wondering
about.
That's
a Columbo as he's heading out the door. One more thing.
Okay, so they did talk about the footage today. Jackson said, did you note anything about the footage, such as it being inverted? I didn't note that, Tully says, and I didn't notice that. Okay. So basically the chain of custody of this footage was Tully gave it to Trooper Michael Proctor, and so Proctor was the one with access to the footage. But then there was another weird little thing that came up, and then it was right before a break, so that it didn't continue. So Tully said he recovered, there was a photo, a red plastic taillight piece, a shoe, and a clear plastic pieces and another red piece were discovered on January 29th at the crime scene. He didn't recover them, but that's what was discovered. 2 clear pieces were photographed, Tully said. But there was only a photograph of one, replies Jackson. No, there wasn't, says Tully. Judge calls a break. I'm like, what the actual fuck? That storyline is not picked up after the break.
Wow.
Like, what is happening?
Wow.
Yeah. And I think it's going to come up more in defense. But then the WTAF moment for me. Tully talks about police reports. And the police reports he wrote. He said he wrote about the evidence he found at Fairview Road on January 29th, but the report is dated February 10th. Okay. So looking at the report, he says it indicates as a piece of clear plastic on the ground, not 2. Okay. So I think that what the defense is intimating is that the second piece of plastic appears way later in the timeline.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
It wasn't photographed at the scene, and it did not appear in the February 10th report. Okay. So he says that on Wednesday, he pulled 2 pieces of clear plastic out for the jury from this evidence bag, which is marked as containing that, as found on January 29th. Tully pulled 3 pieces of plastic out of a bag today. Those items are also marked as having been collected on January 29th. Jackson said, but there's 5 pieces of plastic in these 2 bags. And Tully said, quote, As we sit here today, yes. Jackson says, where did the other pieces of plastic come from?
Yeah.
Your report says there were 3 pieces of plastic recovered on January 29th. There are 5 now. And you want to hear what Tully said? Did you see what he said?
No.
Quote, I'll take the hit that my report doesn't properly memorialize it.
Oh, my God. Okay. Take one for the team.
This is like the latest in a series of, oh, my bads. I don't recall. I guess I wrote it wrong.
Yeah. Yeah. Everything that could help Karen was done the wrong way. And everything that could help the Alberts somehow managed to clear okay. Everything
that could help the state with their case.
Yeah.
I mean, they fucked the fact that this case was brought with how this evidence, even the chain of custody of stuff, it's the basics. This is like thing that they say at my job, like be brilliant at the basics. These guys are horrible at the basics. Okay.
Remind me, who was the officer that was seen behind the SUV in the Sallyport footage?
Proctor?
Yeah, that's what I thought. So
that. But Buchanan says, I don't know if that's Proctor or not. Proctor said it was him. It was him. So
did it look like a thumb? I mean, we could tell.
Big old thumb.
This. I know there's evidence today of DNA that matched O'Keefe found on the headlight. And, after
the taillight?
Sorry.
A mixture of 3 people.
Right.
And an indication that one of them could have been O'Keefe.
Right.
The boyfriend of the woman whose SUV it belonged to.
After all of this, even with that, I don't find it very convincing.
Here's my question. They had 4 witnesses that spoke to DNA today. And Jackson and Yannetti did not cross-examine any of the 4. They had a guy who was basically the guy who did the swabs.
Right.
And he swabbed Proctor and Buchanan.
Yeah.
This is the state trying to prove that they didn't touch evidence and place it at the scene.
Right. I've also heard that, one of the reasons they do that is to rule out anybody that might have touched it in the course of the
contamination,
investigation.
Right?
Yeah.
Right. So but Proctor especially collected evidence at the scene, right?
Yeah.
So how does Proctor's DNA not being on these pieces of plastic exclude him from touching the pieces of plastic when he is the cop investigating this case? Yeah,
right. Also, you've got 2 other DNA profiles there. I don't see this leading to a conviction, but, now that we have genetic genealogy, it wouldn't be that difficult to track down to see who those people were. And
I don't think the DNA matters. I just don't fucking think it matters.
If it came back as one of the Alberts?
It doesn't matter because I don't think... Listen, there's so much doubt as to where those pieces of glass and plastic came from.
Yeah, right.
It doesn't fucking matter at this point. There's just so much doubt about the chain of that evidence. Like the idea that they would try to exclude... prove that Proctor did not touch this piece of plastic taillight and plant it at the scene, right? Mm-hmm. But if he collected that piece of taillight from the scene, and it doesn't have his DNA, clearly he knows how to not put his DNA on a thing.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hopefully the jurors can make that connection.
Hopefully Jackson makes that connection. I just don't think it's that much of a leap. And I just don't think it's that I don't know. I mean, it's like on the DNA experts today were like, these mixtures are more likely to point to this or less likely to point to this. The one thing I also know is that juries want to hear it's him, it's her, it's them. That's what they want to hear. They don't want to hear the more likely, least, even though those things are mathematically pretty sure. Mm-hmm. That's not compelling for juries. And it's also not compelling for juries to hear there's only one contributor of DNA on a t-shirt. Who?
Yeah.
Who?
Right.
It's O'Keefe, right? It's his blood. Just fucking say that it's his blood. That's fine. But it was a very strange day.
Every day in this case is more and more bizarre. I personally, my favorite person that got up there was Higgins, and just watching him try to squirm out of the text messages there and deleting that and destroying the SIM card. And he's like, oh no, that's a reasonable thing to do. Everybody destroys their phone SIM card and then puts it in 2 different dumpsters.
The day before they were going to get a letter saying, don't get rid of your phone.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was wild. And what was weird to me, and it didn't come up, was that he was asked that question on Friday afternoon and like said no. And then he was asked that question again on Monday and said yes.
Yeah.
He's also a very like one of those like gaslighty liars.
Yeah.
Where and I'm calling him a liar because he changed his answers. And so I'm saying the first one was a lie because people like to say, he misled, he lied. And then when you say something different than the other thing you said, you were not telling the truth.
Yeah.
But he says it in such a way that you could be like, oh, well, maybe he just didn't realize what the question was. No, he's a cop. Like he like 100% understands the intent of the question, what the question means. And to some extent, Proctor was doing the same thing. Like, these are the Alberts I know.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, I don't consider that a relationship. But do you know him?
Yeah.
Like,
was he
anyway.
also the one, or was it Proctor that was like, the defense asked him, were you coached by the prosecution? No, I haven't talked to them in years. And then like 2 seconds later, oh yeah, I talked to them over the weekend and they told me how to answer.
Yeah. It's good times. This case is, I don't know. If I lived in Massachusetts, I would be so angry. I would be like, my taxes are doing what now? Yeah. Yeah.
I know we got to steer clear of dangerous speculation, but do you have a personal, like in your mind, do you have a thought as to what happened? Have you played it through?
Yeah. I mean, this is totally speculation. If she didn't hit him, which, I haven't completely closed the door on that, although I don't think the injuries seem to point that way. But I've been waiting for the state to put up an expert explaining how the injuries match the hit, because that would be the star witness, but they haven't done it. So I'm guessing they're not going to do it. I don't think the injuries match that.
No.
I think my speculation is that it's something really fucking stupid.
Yeah.
That
it usually is, right?
Came into the house hot because he and Karen were fighting.
Mm-hmm.
Came into the house hot, he and Higgins maybe got into it. Maybe he and Colin got into it, something. The dog jumped into it because to me, as somebody who's been bitten by a dog, those look like dog bites to me.
Well, 100%. They certainly don't look like
pattern,
injury.
boom. Yeah.
You'd get from an SUV.
If you know what dog bites look like, there's patterns of two again and again and again and again and again. And they are exactly the place where like police dogs and German Shepherds are trained to bite. Oh, right.
You see those footage of them in the with the cushion
giant
suits.
padded arm.
Yeah. And they're always after the arm. Yeah.
Yeah. They're always after the forearm, and the dog, the injuries are all exactly there.
That's a good point.
So I think there was some stupid altercation maybe. And then I don't think they thought necessarily he was going to die. Yeah. But maybe he either stumbled out and they were like, go out to your stupid fucking girlfriend. They maybe thought she was still out there. Yeah. Or they dragged him out and left him there thinking that he would maybe call her and come back. I don't think they thought he was going to die. Yeah. That being said, the maybe 2:30 a.m. search for how long to die in the snow is very curious to me. And I'm looking forward to the expert explaining exactly how they know it was definitely 2:30. Yes. And not, as the prosecution says, a tab that was opened at 2:30, and therefore a search that you put in later would have been marked as 2:30.
I don't think that's how any of this works. Right? I don't think that's how
Google
it works.
has to say, right?
Yeah. That when she was on the stand, McCabe, and saying that no, the data was incorrect, it's just like, we'll see how that plays out, but I don't think that's going to go with the jury.
Given all that they said Karen was saying at the scene, everyone asserts, Karen was saying, I hit him, whatever. Does the phrase, can you please Google how long it takes someone to die in the snow? Does that fit in her histrionic screaming dialogue that everyone has been describing?
No, it doesn't. Yeah, that's good too.
Doesn't fit me. What do you think? What's your speculation theory?
The marks on the arm, I think, are the best evidence for me. What I would have checked, and I'm sure this has already been done, but the first thing I would have checked is if the coroner or DA did any sort of swabs on those abrasions. Would they have dog saliva on there? Is that something that could be tested? I haven't heard anything about that. But as far as what happened, I think your story makes a lot of sense. It's the best. It's the best narrative that fits all the circumstantial evidence. The only thing that keeps me from being 100% in on the conspiracy theory and in the small window that maybe she really did hit him is there were about 12 people in that house. Mm-hmm. It's really hard for two people to keep a secret.
12 people?
Yeah, 12 people in general, but like even just two people, it's hard to keep a secret. But you've got 12. You've got 12 people in there, and not one of them. Again, you've got families of police officers protecting their own, maybe. But in the age of social media, would somebody have slipped up and said something online or sent a text to a boyfriend that ended up on Reddit or something? That's the only hang up I have. But certainly, if I was on a jury, I could never convict in this case because of the vast amount of reasonable doubt.
My response to that, I've said this before, I said on the Boston Globe podcast, is that is true. That being said, all you have to believe is that a small group of people would keep a secret about a very high stakes thing.
Yeah.
And in Boston,
sure.
Cops and cops' families have done that over and over and over again. That would not be a new narrative.
That's true.
In that city. It wouldn't be. There's also this other possibility. We don't 100% know that someone in the house has not told somebody. We don't know that. We just know that we don't know.
Yeah, sure.
That someone in the house hasn't told somebody. You know what I mean? I think about the Chuck Stewart case, right? This is the guy, Chuck Stewart. He murdered his pregnant wife, Carol Stewart.
Okay.
The cops, he said that a black man did it. The Boston cops completely swarmed Jamaica Plain. They arrested this other guy, whatever. Chuck Stewart wasn't a cop, but his whole family knew he did it, and they kept it a secret for a really fucking long time.
Sure.
And the only reason he ended up throwing himself into the river and dying by suicide. But it turned out there had been tips to the police that he did it, and they ignored them.
Oh, wow.
That never came out. So, we just don't know yet.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
True. That's true.
Yeah. So, anyway. Well, James Renner, I can't tell you how wonderful it's been talking about this. I have a feeling we may be texting about this again in the future.
Yeah, please.
And if you ever want to have me on your show, I'd love to come on, and I'd love to have you back on our show to talk about something else maybe. But right now, this is my whole personality. If you want to come back on and talk about this again, I'd do it with you. So Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. It means a lot. I appreciate it.
It means a lot to me to talk to you as well. So thanks for joining me.
You bet. Anytime.
Partners in Crime Media.